beaming around the planet and across the galaxy. This is the Darren Sanders Show!
Australia does not have a high rate of sitcoms that have come out of this country yet. Yet one that still remains popular, as I said, there's very few, but one that does remain popular was Acropolis Now. One of the stars, I could say stars, can't I?
Hey?
I say stars, can't I?
You can say star.
One of the stars of the
You can throw that around.
of that sitcom. Simon Palomares, how are you, Simon?
I'm good. Great.
Thanks
Great to be here.
Well, I know you're on your way through town, so you're a very busy man. Now performing all over the world, stand up.
Yeah.
Everywhere. But let's go back to that. Probably most the thing you're probably known for mostly. Would it be or not?
I guess so.
Or would it be something on Flying Doctors? Or
I don't know. I used to sometimes I sing in a tango band sometimes, right. and people and I've been known for people come up to me and say, "Oh, you're the tango singer,"
really, without
any other knowledge of anything else that I do. So, yeah.
Well, why do you think Australia doesn't have that? Like sitcoms every year come out.
So first and foremost, Acropolis was one of the last, if not the last, sitcom in front of a live audience.
Right. Yeah.
They're very expensive to put together. Even like the big studios that that we used to use down in Channel 7 in South Melbourne, they don't get used that much anymore. So basically, what we've been seeing is sort of like the Kath and Kim's and all that sort of thing, which is sort of like smaller productions, or that sort of like handheld,
But that live format, it's very theatrical, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we used to have a ball filming though, because in between the takes, we have this massive studio audience to play to and so on.
Yeah.
So I performed in series 1 and 2, and I wrote for the third one, and then went off and did other things.
Now, Wogs Out of Work, did that stem before Acropolis Now, or did that come after?
No, it was before.
Did it then lift its profile after, or was it successful before? That's
Wogs Out of Work was one of these massive hits that sort of basically came out of nowhere. We started at the first Melbourne Comedy Festival. We started in the small theatre at the Universal Theatre. Within 2 or 3 months, I think it was, we were at the Athenaeum, which was completely unheard of for a comedy show to move into such a big theatre. The Athenaeum, we were there for like, I don't know, 10 months, something like that. And then we were in, I think by April the next year, we were at the Opera House.
Right.
Which they had a problem with using the word WOG in the advertising, or putting word WOG. We actually had quite a few problems throughout the run of the show. Anyway, all up, from the Opera House we went to the Enmore Theatre, and the Enmore Theatre we were there for God knows how long. I think a year or something like that. It was just ridiculous. It was just like kept rolling and rolling and rolling. 8 shows a week.
Because who were the other? In
the original one, Nick Giannopoulos, Maria Portesi, and myself.
Right. Okay.
And we got contacted by Crawford Productions, who were interested in what we were doing. By this stage, we'd done like all sorts of TV shows and stuff like that, because it just, it snowballed into this massive hit. Then became sort of like the kind of thing that you had to see because it was just so popular.
Yeah.
And
didn't you do something on Hey Hey? Was it
We did Tibaldi Brothers.
Yeah.
George Campaneris and I were working as the Tibaldi Brothers for about 2 years before Wogs Out of Work.
Right.
He went off and did Flying Doctors.
Yep.
And I got together with Nick and Mary, and we did Wogs Out of Work. What happened is that Hector Crawford, we sort of got summoned to the office, and Hector Crawford, I remember sitting there. There was like a massive. It was an oval table. It was the size of a football field. The three of us, George Campaneris, Nick, and myself, were sitting at one end. Hector Crawford and the head of comedy, and I can't remember his name, but he was a man who was renowned for not having a sense of humour, having a sense of
humor. And that's the head of comedy.
And he was the head of comedy.
But that's like TV now. There's a head of entertainment, and there's not a lot of entertainment on. So,
because Crawford's been renowned for doing comedy. I think the last thing they did was Bobby Dassler with John Farnham.
All right,
that. And
what was that, 70s, 60s?
Something like that, yeah. Well, we're talking 85, 86 now.
Yeah.
And anyway, Hector was at the end of the table, and he said, explain to me what this is about, and we tried to explain what the show was about, and he said, look, I really don't understand, not grasping what this is all about, so I'm going to go and see it, and then we'll have another meeting. So he came to see it with his wife, sat at the front row, and then we had another meeting. And there was.
Did you see him there? Like, when you're on
like
stage
you couldn't miss him. Like probably one of the most creative people in Australian television history. And the meeting started with him saying, and he had like a raspy voice. He had like problems with his throat and stuff like that. And he said, well, I went to see it, and I didn't understand anything about the show, but the lady next to me kept falling off her chair laughing. So I think you got something here. So we'll go ahead and develop an idea and a program, and then he turned to the head of comedy and he said, "And I think you should stay right out of it." It's one of the best things I ever heard in a meeting, and and then they went from that. But that was 30 years ago.
It's just very different. Stand up live. I think there is a singing stand up community where people are going.
The original Walks Out was not a stand up show. It was a sketch show. Right, with different characters and so on.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing that there's been so many other WOG things since then that people sort of like lump it into one thing.
Yeah.
But you got to understand what the impact of that was, which is to grow up in a country thinking that your family is the only one that behaves like that at home, and the outside world is totally different. And going to a theatre and seeing 1,000 people sitting there watching, for example, the most popular two characters in the show were the two mothers working in a factory, right? That was Nick Giannopoulos and myself, and to actually, it was like an emancipation. I mean, to me, to this day, it was the one show that I wish I had seen for the first time, right? But I was actually performing it on stage because the people in the audience.
Have you not got footage? You can pull it out now and watch it, and it's because time's gone. You sort of go, oh, that's right. Oh, that was all right.
It was never recorded. It was never, it was before video and all that sort of thing.
Different era.
Yeah, and apart from a few sort of clips that are floating around from news stories. But maybe when Alzheimer's hit, I can sort of like watch it again. And so it was quite an amazing thing. So and since then, there's been a lot of other shows and so on with the word WOG on and so on. But of course, it will never have the impact.
But that transition though from stage, like, well, I know it's sketch, but stage comedy to TV or productions. There is this feeling in stand-up community. It's like, how come they're not coming to see us and put us in this? Not that there's anything to put them in.
The thing is with Wogs at Work is like, I mean, you're saying like, why don't they come to the comedy clubs? I mean, we had to be big enough that we could not be ignored.
Yeah.
I mean, Wogs at Work, was imagine playing 8 shows a week at the Enmore Theatre, which is what 1,500 seats for a year. I mean, we're talking like Lion King numbers type of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So, it got to the point where it was just like the show, and then we had 2 different companies playing at the same time around the country. It was just, it really was one of the biggest things in Australian theatre history.
You were born in Germany, though, correct?
I was born in Germany. My parents are Spanish.
Were you born in Germany just because they were passing through? You weren't
because they were working over there, yeah.
Okay.
And then went back to Spain. I went to Spain when I was 3 months old.
Right.
Grew up in Spain, first 10 years of my life throughout the Franco dictatorship and all that sort of thing. Basically, it was a Catholic dictatorship, which was almost all the other religions were banned. It was a military dictatorship. It was pretty much closed off from the rest of the world. Right. It's interesting because I'm doing a bit of work in Cuba at the moment, so it was interesting to go back to a place that's sort of closed off.
Right.
A Spanish-speaking place that's closed off to to other countries, and in '72, at the age of 10, came to Australia.
By yourself or your parents did?
With my parents, I found them. My parents came first. Didn't speak a word of English for the people who are trying to change the citizenship laws.
Could your parents speak English?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Like so many generations of people that have come here. And then we came here and moved to Lygon Street.
Okay.
Grew up in Lygon Street.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end of the Jewish period, and the beginning of the Italian period of Logan Street.
That's a good street.
That's a great street. It was a great place. I mean, I'm such an urbanite. I did not have a backyard until I was like 18, 19. At which point I really didn't want a backyard.
I don't need one now. I don't want to mow a lawn. Or do that stuff.
Same.
Yeah, no. It's a good thing about Melbourne is that you can go out late at night, and that's still one street that will be open, and you can get some food after a show. Or,
well, Melbourne developed. It was actually the funny thing is that it was the strict liquor laws, because we had all the BYO licensing, so you actually had to bring alcohol.
Right.
So restaurants did not survive on selling alcohol, so they had to compete on the food.
Yeah.
So that's where the Melbourne food culture developed, because they had to survive on good food rather than selling alcohol.
Yeah, and staying open longer.
And staying open, and all that sort of thing. And it's got, I have to say that when I travel overseas, and you go to places which and Spain, France, New York, which are really well known for food, but man, it's like Melbourne it's really one of the best in the world now.
Here's something positive for those long movies you may have to sit through, or sporting events that go on forever. Adult diapers. Just put on a pair of adult diapers, watch the movie or the game without getting up. Adult diapers, so now you can go during the show. Here with some late breaking news from the un-Australian Emma Malik.
Thanks, Darren. A platypus at Taronga Zoo has started his own Instagram account. His feed is mainly of him just taking selfies, pulling a duck face.
So you get back to Spain a fair bit now. You have...
I work for Comedy Central in Spain.
Okay.
I started about 7 years ago. I started doing stand-up in Spanish.
Yep.
So I went back and recorded a couple of monologues for Comedy Central. I'm going back...
How was that changing material? That I guess it's the same. You're not writing brand new jokes in Spanish. You're converting your English
eventually
speaking.
I do. I mean, the first two monologues that I did was sort of like the family stuff that I do that I do over here. And then I was the first Spanish comic to be invited to the Montreal Comedy Festival, to Just for Laughs. And that was interesting because I was performing in front of like 300 people who could speak English, French and Spanish.
Right.
And I could change languages, from one to the other. I could do a joke in Spanish and tag it in English, and everybody would be right there.
Yeah. As long as you understood all three, it wasn't just English speaking, French speaking, and Spanish speaking, and then you chop and change, and halfway through there just
and one third of them I look at you blankly.
What do you say? What do you say?
So that was an interesting experience to sort of go to. Literally, I think it's by far the best comedy festival in the world, because the standard of everything is just phenomenal. And then you have, during the day, you have things like Louis C.K. doing workshops and talking about the business of comedy and so on. It was I've been involved in a couple of places. Argentina, where I go and teach. I do my masterclass over there, and Bolivia last year, where with Marcus Ryan we did one gig in a bar in La Paz in Bolivia, right, with the entire comedy scene of the country in one room, right? All six comics, comics in Bolivia were there, and they've actually they've kicked off, and they're growing and doing different things. A couple of years ago, I got the rights to Setlist,
Provenza's.
Paul Provenza's improvisation show. And the rest of the year, as you know, now there's this massive circuit that is opened up on cruise ships.
I guess it had this stigma about it, but now it's
funny.
Moved.
I started 5 years ago, and it did have this stigma. I thought the same thing. I said, this is where all comics go to die, basically.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to us at the time, it was on the verge of this booming industry.
Yeah. And especially now that they do concentrate on comedy, it's not like a side thing. Some of them have the venues, which
comedy clubs and so on.
Well, that world's open up for you because both being bilingual, trilingual, whatever you are now. You can go seasonal, everywhere, global.
Well, we've talked about going to the Caribbean and doing shows in Spanish with a couple of the companies there. But what it is. And this is right back to Wogs at Work. My philosophy has always been of finding the common threads. the similarities between people, between cultures, and so on. So that worked for me with Wogs at Work. It's worked for me with basically everything, and I try to find that in everything that I do. When you get to do it, even if you do a ship out of Australia, it's the only place where you're going to be standing on stage and see people from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, like the whole country.
Not only are they from all those places, that they're also different age groups, different nationalities, different.
Absolutely.
There's everything mixed in there, and it's quite amazing. Then and you do feel good about yourself when you can make someone laugh from 14 to bloody 90. And you
when you're doing a ship out of Antarctica and you're playing to 400 Americans and 300 Canadians and 200 Irish and all that sort of thing all in one room, and you can make it work. It's
and
quite
you're Australian too, because there is that thing where I guess a lot of people don't know. The rest of the world still treat Australia like they're down there, and we're not going to understand them. We couldn't be bothered, but we are getting out there and getting amongst it now.
But you do have to change. You do have to change your approach.
I mean, you can't go up and go, "Yeah, g'day, you going?"
I think Dave Hughes was sort of saying, the first time we did like the Comedy Store in Sydney, and he was there in LA, and he was with his girlfriend, and he walked off stage, and he couldn't work out why his material wasn't working, and the girlfriend just looked at it and said, because they didn't understand what you were saying. That's why. And
I can't understand a word he's saying now.
Yeah, and the thing is, once you actually leave Australia and you hear the accent again, it is quite a harsh accent to people from outside. The approach is that instead of like finding your own audience and all that sort of thing, and finding the group that can relate to you and so on. This is the other way around, which is actually to try to connect with basically everybody, and that's what I've been doing for years. Which is whether it's a venue in Fitzroy in Melbourne, or in Sydney, or anywhere else in Australia, but then to go into a bar in Uruguay or La Paz in Bolivia.
Yeah, I'm screwed there.
You'd be stuffed, right? But they don't know who I am. I don't know that much about them. So it's actually find the common threads and the connection.
How important do you think it is to have maybe a mentor in whatever job you've got? I know that you looked up to John Clark, and whenever you had questions or ideas, or
I was very lucky to work on. I think it was like 4 projects. Even my first comedy festival was the trial of Malcolm X,
right?
With John Clark was writing, which was a court case with real judges, and it was a group of improvising actors playing the witnesses, and the lawyers and the judges were real lawyers and judges. Okay. And one night, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore was the guest judge, which was the scariest thing I've ever done on stage, which is to improvise on stage with Peter Cook. And I think it was Gina Riley actually. I ran into her in one of the projects that we were working on. It wasn't the games. It was another one of the book series that they turned into films, and we sort of said hello to each other. Said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And she said, "When John Clark calls you, you just turn up." And that's exactly it, because it was always going to be good. It was always going to be interesting. It was always going to be intelligent, and so it was very. To me, is certainly someone that just set the benchmark for how to work in comedy in Australia and do your own thing and make it work. But I love, in Japan they've got the style of comedy where all the comedians is a storytelling style, and all the comedians have got a mentor. Right. And it's like studying a martial art. And that's sort of, I love that thing about the Japanese, because they just watch for the first 2 or 3 years. They don't do anything, they just watch. And then the mentor and the apprentice have got this long life, relationship, where the apprentice then takes on. I mean, it's unheard. It's incredible for us to think of, because we're such ego-driven society, right? To actually then take on the name of your mentor, right?
Oh, really?
And go from there. And there are methods to what we do. It's not just getting up and testing it out. And the other thing is, which is the other thing that I was telling my students in my class. It's like, stop listening to other comics. Stop listening to other comics, especially like the people who end up, floating around the open mic scene, because it's inexperience.
Do you mean stop listening to other comics at that level, or stop listening?
Stop listening to the other comics at that level, because especially it's like the comedy police. It's like, oh, you should be doing this, and that's not stand up, and this is not stand up.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the early stage, I think you got to listen to the audience. They're the ones you listen to.
I think you got to listen to the audience always, basically.
Yeah.
But the whole idea that the thing with the comedy police is the comedy police tells you what the rules are. Now, in doing that, nothing new or innovative is going to come from that, because it's actually in breaking the rules that that the new interesting stuff happens in any art form.
Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea. I haven't made a plan in 15
You're just sort of
years.
Floating at the moment.
Floating is a good way to put it. I have this amazing lifestyle at the moment where I work with an agent in Miami, and the cruise ship work sort of takes me further and further afield. It's where we sort of halfway through the year now, and I've been to Antarctica, I've been to Alaska, I've been to Cuba, without even really planning it. And then it gives me the time to go and do things. The more I travel, the more I get settled back in Melbourne. I've got two beautiful sons down there, and they're growing up and doing their own thing, but it's really great to be to have a place to call home. And I don't know, if I keep doing more of what I'm doing, it gives me the time to then take time throughout the year to go and follow my other projects. I've got some documentary stuff. I'm going to Cuba to shoot some interviews on Cuban comedy, which will be interesting to see what what you can say and not say. And just the way people use humour in different ways around the world.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for dropping in.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
You too.
Coming up on the next episode of the Darren Sanders Show.
Archie Roach was or is a really big influence in music for a lot of indigenous people, but myself in particular.
Not funny. And I realized what I went, oh shit, I think I've been set up to explode.
The Darren Sanders Show was not recorded in front of a live studio audience. Mike Goldman speaking.